This is Humbug. It's written by Mike Ede. Driveway night. Snow covers everything in this quaint little town. It's eerily quiet. Not a soul walking the streets or a car on the roadways. Christmas Eve. The brisk night sky is filled with only one sound. A snow shovel slamming into the fresh snow. Again and again. At the only house in the entire neighborhood not decorated for the holidays. We meet Stanley, a frail 76-year-old man. He's bundled up, trying to stay warm, trying even harder to shovel his driveway, but has only managed to clear a small pathway from his front door to the adjoining driveway. As his cardiologist would say, baby steps. He's very frustrated and muttering to himself under his breath.
Fuck's sakes.
He's breathing quite heavily and laboring with every swing of the shovel. As the snow keeps falling, it's taking everything he has to get ahead of it. He's failing miserably. The front door to the house opens. On the other side of it is Stanley's wife, Dorothy. She's a tiny lady and looks young for her 79-year-old frame. She's holding a warm cup of hot chocolate in her favorite oversized Cermak mug. She's trying to pull her housecoat in tight to stay warm.
It's getting pretty bad out there, Stan. Why don't you just get one of the neighbor kids to shovel the rest for you?
Stanley stopped shoveling for a moment, more to catch his breath, but he would never let Dorothy notice that.
Go inside, woman, and shut the goddamn door. You're letting all the heat out.
Dorothy holds up a warm hat with furry ear flaps.
At least put this on. You'll catch your death out there.
Jesus H. Christ, Dorothy. Do I look like that kid who delivers our flyers?
Now, Stan, you know he was in a bicycle accident.
A bicycle accident? He's a goddamn retard, Dot. Ain't no bicycle do that to him.
Frustrated by Stanley's comments, Dorothy sticks her head out the front door and looks side to side.
Keep your voice down, Stan. You know we can't use words like that anymore.
That's the goddamn problem. You can't say anything anymore. World is chock full of pussies now.
What did you just say?
Nothing, Dot. Just talking about pushing snow. That's all.
Stan lifts up the collar on his coat to block the wind and goes back to shoveling.
It's Christmas Eve, Stan. Hurry up and come inside. Remember what Dr. Wembley told us. Snow shoveling
is the number 2 killer of the elderly.
Dorothy heads back inside and closes the front door behind her. Stanley whispers to himself.
I bet I know what number 1 cause, that nagging wife.
He laughs to himself as he slams the shovel into another pile of snow. He works on the area for a bit longer. As the snow continues to fall, he has made 2 passes in his driveway now, but still has about a dozen or so more to go. His breath is getting shorter, thinner. His pace is much slower. With each pass, it's taking its toll on him. As Stanley pushes his shovel's load off to the side of the driveway, he catches a shadow out of the corner of his eye. He jerks his head quickly to see it, dropping the shovel in the process. Stanley's POV. He looks side to side, sees nothing. Just snow and darkness. He hinges, hits upper body to reach for the fallen shovel, trying his best not to injure his reconstructed knee. He misses the shovel, but his gloved fingertips. Stanley gets back to an upright position while looking around again. He's scanning the freshly fallen snow, but it's getting harder to see through the blizzard-like conditions.
Likely that goddamn neighbor cat.
He hates that cat. He's always getting into his garbage. Stanley resumes shoveling. He sinks his shovel into a fresh load of snow. From somewhere, OS comes a deep growl. Stanley turns quickly to where the sound was coming from, but again sees nothing.
What the hell was that? Maybe it's my stomach again. That goddamn soup.
He stops shoveling, staring motionless at his shadow in the snow for a moment. The dark outline he's casting in the snow seems to have moved slightly. He squints his eyes to look closer. His shadow looks to be growing. He blinks a couple of times, then quickly turns to look over his shoulder. Again, nothing. He looks back at the shadow, takes off his glasses, and rubs his eyes. They must be playing tricks on him. They do that sometimes. but not this time. As he's rubbing his eyes, he realizes his shadow doesn't move, not at all. Shouldn't it? Shouldn't it be? His eyes widen. As he stares closer, the left arm on the shadow lifts up above its head. He looks to his right, and his arm is not rising. He looks back at the shadow. The right arm on the silhouette starts to rise as well. His eyes open wider, not rising. He turns back to the shadow. Both shadowy arms are above its head, standing still for a short moment in place. The shadow lunges towards Stanley. Shadow.
Boo.
Stanley drops the shovel in terror and tries to run up the driveway, but as he does, he loses his footing and slips on the freshly shoveled laneway, falls face first into the paved walkway. Mere feet from his front step fade to black. Driveway encounter, night. Stanley's POV. His eyes blink open slowly. He sees the front steps of his house. Stanley turns his head slowly back to the driveway and sees the shovel laying in the snow. He blinks a couple times while he assesses the situation. While trying to push himself up to his side, he feels an immense pain coming from his hip. He's not sure if it's broken, but it hurts enough to be. Stan falls back down as quick as he tried to lift himself up. He calls out to his wife, but the cold air has dried out his throat enough to take his words away. He looks towards the big picture window at the front of the house and sees Dot. She's sitting in her favorite chair, watching an old rerun of A Christmas Carol. She loves that movie. Footsteps can be heard behind him in the driveway. His face goes white. He turns his head quickly to see, but again, nothing's there. He sees something, though. Footprints in the freshly fallen snow start to appear. Something's walking towards his downed body. Stanley's voice is still not strong enough to yell, but he tries to.
I know you're there. Show yourself, coward.
A voice speaks back, very quietly, so only he can hear. Shadow.
Hello.
Stanley's eyes fly open. He thought he was imagining all of this, but clearly he's not.
Who's there? What kind of sick bastard goes around scaring old men half to death?
Half to death. Sorry, but that's not normally my style.
Do we know each other?
You've likely only heard about me, but I most certainly know you. Stanley.
Stanley's eyes open even wider. He frantically tries to gather himself to move, but he can't. The pain is too much. He starts to cough to clear his throat. He tries yelling again.
Dorothy!
It comes out quite strained and not very clear at all.
She can't hear you. She's busy.
The shadow figure moves around Stanley's fallen body.
Besides, I'm not here for her. Not yet, anyways.
Who the hell are you?
Stanley looks around frantically, still trying to catch a glimpse of who or what he's speaking to.
Hell. Now that's funny.
Stanley shifts his weight to his other side, letting out a loud groan while doing so. He tries to get his knees, but he doubles over in pain.
I could be wrong, Stanley, but I swear that awful pain you're feeling may be your new hip. Wasn't that surgery like 2 years ago? A lifetime warranty, the doctor said, and your lifetime is short.
How the hell did you know that?
I was there, silly.
Stanley looks to his right and sees the handle to the shovel. He stretches his hand toward it slowly.
Cheeky.
Before Stanley can grasp it, the shovel flies across the driveway into another snowbank at the far end of the laneway. Stanley's face is quite pale now and covered in sweat.
How were you there?
When it matters most, I'm always there. Ha ha ha.
So what are you, my fairy fucking godmother or something?
Ah ha ha! Well, Stanley, I can honestly say that in all my years, and trust me, it's been many, that no one has made me laugh quite like you have here tonight.
Stanley shifts his weight again and rests on one of his arms.
Does that mean you'll shut the fuck up and help me?
Sadly, it does not. I, my good man, am on the job, which means as long as I'm clocked in, I'm working. And trust me, Stan, this isn't very good news for you.
The shadow stretches a shadowy hand towards Stanley's chest. Stan clenches up.
My chest having trouble breathing.
That's how this is supposed to work.
What work? What works?
Death.
What? I can't die, not now.
Oh, I assure you, you can and will most certainly die. But you've piqued my curiosity. Why is now not a good time for you? Seems to me like the perfect time.
My wife, Dorothy, she needs me.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, Stanley, but your wife does not need you. Not at all, actually.
But she loves me.
Loves you? Really?
We've been married for 57 years. That's love.
Listen, I'm not saying she's never loved you. I'm just saying that she doesn't love you now. She hasn't in quite some time.
Stanley looks devastated.
Let's play a game, Stanley. It's called Did You Know? It's where I tell you something that you may or may not know, and I get to see your reaction. It'll be fun. Question 1. Did you know that Dorothy, God lover, has been slipping laxatives into your tomato soup for the past 20 years?
She what?
I know, right? I thought it was weird too when I first noticed her doing it.
She wouldn't do that.
Oh, I assure you, she can, and she does. Does that sound like something you'd do to someone you love? I actually think she may even hate you. Like, not enough to fully poison you or put a pillow over your face when you're snoring horribly at night, as you do, but just enough to cause you severe gastro issues each and every one of your miserable days. Did you think it was just coincidence that each time you eat your soup, your stomach hurts?
Stanley looks back up at Dorothy in the big picture window. This time he looks angry.
Look at her in there. Does that look like the face of a woman who loves or even needs her husband?
She looks so happy, happier than he's ever seen her before.
Come to think of it, I'm thinking most wives would have checked on their 76-year-old overweight, heart attack-bound husband by now, but not her. Nope. Look at her. She couldn't be happier. I bet it's at the part where Ebenezer realizes he's been a horrible person and wants to change. That part always gets me.
Stanley stares at her for a moment and would almost agree that he hasn't seen her this happy in years. His face turns sour very quickly as he looks away.
Yeah, well, fuck her. And fuck you too. At least my kids still love me.
Stanley grabs his chest again as more pain grows inside.
Wrong again. You know what, Stanley? You're right. Your kids don't hate you.
See, I told you.
They despise you.
That's not true. They call me all the time to check in on me. That's love.
They don't check on you because they love you. They check in on you because they hope that one day you won't pick up the phone.
Stanley shakes his head back and forth.
I don't believe you.
Would you rather I lie to you, Stanley? Tell you that they love talking to you? Their loving father, the racist, the abuser, the most miserable person they know? Would that help you?
Screw you. Those kids had a great childhood.
Great childhood. Now that's rich. What do you call hitting your daughter with your belt after school?
Kids need discipline. Besides, I caught her kissing a girl from her school. The Bible says...
Wow, now he's quoting that silly book.
Stanley tightens up and looks gruff.
Oh, someone's fired up. Now this is the Stanley I came to visit. Your children aren't the problem here, Stan.
Kids these days are soft. I didn't raise soft kids. I raised strong, caring, independent kids.
Nope, you sure didn't. You raised children to be afraid of their father.
Kids should be afraid of their father. Did you know that I trained my oldest son, Charlie, to make me coffee every morning before I went off to work? That's called respect for your elders.
I'm so glad you brought up coffee. Question 2. Did you know...
Stan shifts his body to look around for something to help him get to his feet.
Now you're going to tell me Charlie was putting laxatives in my coffee.
That would be silly. Coffee is a natural laxative, Stanley. Your eldest and only son was putting something a little more personal in your coffee.
Stanley looks very confused.
What does that mean?
The shadow moves towards Stanley's other side, so he's closer to his downed body. OS, the sound of someone building up to spit gets Stan's attention.
He was spitting in my coffee?
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Motherfucker.
Stanley starts dry heaving as he thinks about the year of coffee and spit he ingested. He forces himself to one knee.
I'm impressed. You're still trying to stand up?
Stanley's good leg is kicked out from underneath him. He falls in extreme pain to the snow-covered walkway below. Interior living room night. Dorothy sinks in her chair. She's smiling ear to ear as Ebenezer Scrooge admits the errors of his ways and embraces the person he should have been all along. She takes a long, deep sip from her hot chocolate as her blanket falls from her shoulders. Bliss. Driveway, showdown, light snowfall. Stan's laying in the walkway, face up. His chest continues to tighten. He grabs it with both hands. The pain is unbearable. He pulls open his jacket and shirt until he gets to his bare chest. There's a black virus-looking mark stretched across his chest, covering his heart. It's getting darker. Both of his eyes are closed and crusted over with ice. His glasses are completely fogged over.
Have you not figured all this out yet?
Stanley opens his eyes, tearing his eyelashes apart. He looks directly into the black sky with hope for the first time in a while.
Wait, I get it. I know who you are. You're the ghost of Christmas past. You're here to show me all the bad shit I've done in my life. You're supposed to make me feel horrible. That's your goddamn job. Fuck's sakes, make me feel terrible. Why didn't I realize this sooner? I must have dozed off in my recliner while Dot was watching that shit movie. That's it. None of this is actually happening right now.
He looks back and forth at his surroundings as if he's seeing it all for the first time.
That's it, isn't it? This is just a dream. I'm gonna wake up a new man, a changed man.
Takes off his glasses and squints at the cloaked man, carrying a scythe that has finally materialized in the front of him.
Well, bah fucking humbug to that. Fuck her. Fuck my ungrateful kids, and fuck you!
You got me. It's Christmas Eve after all.
Stanley coughs again as he grasps for breath. He stares at the snow falling around him. The storm has slowed.
All you have to do is close your eyes, Stanley. When you open them, you'll realize this was all a dream, and you'll go back to being the miserable old bastard you've become.
Stanley lowers his head and starts to close his eyes. As his eyes start to close, he remembers something. His eyes fly open and he reaches for his shirt chest pocket.
Stanley, what are you doing?
His hand digs in the pocket for a moment. When it comes out, Stanley's holding something between his thumb and index finger. He jams them into his mouth and swallows quickly.
What was that, Stanley?
Question 3, fucker. Did you know I always keep extra heart meds on me, just in case? I almost forgot all about them.
You cheeky bastard. You never take your meds without Dorothy's help.
Stanley pushes himself up toward the front door.
Fuck you. And her. I don't need anyone's help.
Stanley grabs the front of his winter jacket and starts pulling it closed. As he shivers more violently, he pulls himself up to the front step toward the front door.
You just won't quit, will you?
Stan tries to reach for the doorknob, but he can't quite reach it, so he bangs on the door instead. The door opens. Dorothy's standing in the doorway. She's staring at Stan's helpless body on the ground.
Thank God. Help me, Dorothy. I'm freezing to death out here.
Oh, heavens, Stanley. What have you done? I'll be right back.
Stanley turns to the shadow.
I told you she loves me.
Dorothy returns to the doorway with her favorite Karamak mug in hand.
Put down that stupid mug and help me, goddammit.
Without saying a word, she smiles, acknowledging the cloaked figure with a nod. She looks side to side out the front door at the neighbors' houses. Everyone has turned in for the night. She lifts the mug over her head and smashes it over Stanley's head with all her might. His body falls to the step with a thud. She bends down, careful not to stand in the pool of blood that has formed under Stan's head in the snow, and picks up each and every broken piece of Karamak and heads back inside, closing and locking the door behind her before disposing of the mug in the kitchen receptacle. Stanley's eyelids crust over with the ice as his plump face grows more and more pale. The figure reaches out to Stan's unconscious body, engulfing it in the shadow. Interior living room night. Dorothy sits down in her chair and reaches for the telephone. 911 dispatch. What's your emergency?
It's my husband. He's had a bad fall while shoveling. I think he hit his head quite badly. I fear he may already be dead.
We're dispatching the paramedics to your location immediately. Dorothy smiles.
No rush, dear. Don't need anyone else catching their death tonight.
Fade to black.
Still wondering what the #1 killer of the elderly is?
The end.